Getting out of prison was a test of focus and patience. And the journey and the preparation began long before that date. Back on November 18th of 2003, as a young man of 22, I simplified my life down to simple choices. And incidentally, on that date, on that night, a long series of poor choices finally caught up. I was involved in a cook, manufacturing a controlled substance, concentrated cannabis, hash oil, honey oil. And as a non-smoker myself, one of my worst fears almost came true that night, and that's dying because of a smoker. My partner, the smoker, had been curious if there was fumes in the room. And so, of course, he did what anybody would do and lit a cigarette. And I heard long and slow words that night, and I looked up to the room in front of me, and a blue and terrifying ball started to grow. I thought to myself, oh shit, this guy just blew the room up. I'm going to prison for a long time. You know, you'd have thought I said something else, but those were the words that came in my mind. And they continued to echo really quickly through my mind until finally the heat absorbed me. Now, like anyone, I tried to get out. I couldn't twist the doorknob. The moisture in my own skin had exploded. And frankly, it was just too graphic to describe. Unable to get that door open, I pretty quickly gave up. I didn't know what else to do. I thought that this was my only choice, and this is the place where I was going to die that night. And I got to tell you, in sincere honesty, drowning in shame, I thought about my mother and the way that I was leaving her. I was so ashamed of myself. I don't know what it was, but for some reason something caught my attention. And I looked over, and I saw the bottoms of my friend's size 15 feet slip out of a tiny little bathroom window. And you could call it primal reflex. You can call it an easy choice. But all I know is I stood up. I pounded my feet. I took a large step forward. I flew through an entire bathroom. I cleared the tiny little window. And I lunged my weight over a workbench that happened to be on the other side. And I landed face first into the floor. And sitting there in shock, the wind curling over my ears had never felt so good. And I burst into flames. At least I got out, right? So these were really poor choices and serious crimes. In prison, it took about a year to forget the outside of those walls. It took about another 6 months to realize that, frankly, I didn't even have the right skills or habits to make it outside of a prison with. And it took a passing comment from a lifer to realize whose fault that was. He said, kids take choices. Adults make decisions. They make decisions. It occurred to me, as a kid, I never made a serious choice, or I never made a decision when it really mattered. I sat there and practically allowed my life to end because I didn't didn't make a real decision. And it blew me away, you know, it all made sense. I was still a kid. So I decided to make some decisions. I decided I will not be a coward again. I decided that the blue shirt, this was not who I was. I decided that I will not be ashamed to ask for help. And frankly, as a grown kid, it's not easy to ask for help or admit you don't know what to do or how to start. But prison is a place where grown kids need to either choose from or create their own fate. It would be up to me to do the work every day, to accept that my way wasn't always going to be the best way, and to learn to become uncomfortable in order to become comfortable learning. But I did it anyways. And I did it because people started believing in me. Getting out of prison was still a test of focus and patience. But while most people don't know what they wanted to do, by this point, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I just didn't know how to get the opportunity. I had spent every day of the 6.5 years of my incarceration getting ready. I took a lot of classes. I read a lot of books. I listened to some really, really helpful teachers. But with all of that knowledge, the most difficult thing to do after that release was to find a potential employer, look him in the eye, and tell him that story. I didn't know how to move forward. I didn't know what to say. Not about my past or my goals for the future. I felt like I needed more time to prepare myself. Frankly, I was scared. To actualize the years of reading and learning through books was what's possible. I wanted to become a software developer as an ex-con straight out of prison. And transparency about it, as it turns out, really resonated here in the Valley. I reached out and I asked for help. I stuck to my decision and not be ashamed. And, you know, it really resonated here with people. They helped me to grow. They helped me to enter the space. They helped me to just feel more confident about myself because of the acceptance. And that flourished into an internship at one of this nation's premier venture capital incubators. Now, to be honest, as remarkable as that sounds in a certain sense, the road wasn't easy. There was many bumps in it. I had lowered expectations many times. Reality didn't always line up. I went from coming out and thinking about Visual Studio and C# to realizing I needed to think more about WordPress and just basic Gmail. But I stuck to it because other people kept believing in me. Today, it's been about 2 years, more or less, since I got out. And my decision has finally come true. I've stepped out into the world for the last year as a freelance WordPress developer, a photographer, and a videographer. And it has been scarier than being blown up. Because the truth is, being blown up happens like that. Starting a new career, especially coming out of prison, takes a long time and a lot of places to screw it up. So it was scarier. But I'm really humbled by it because the reality is, if it wasn't for people in the community, if it wasn't for people in my family, if it wasn't for friends, it never would have happened. So now sitting on this end, I'm thinking about it to myself and I'm asking, is it possible for my story to scale? Can we actually inspire success on a larger scale? I want to show you what happens when someone in San Quentin State Prison is inspired to be a programmer. This is Eddie Griffin. And this is Eddie Griffin, my friend, programming his first lines of code after nearly 20 years in incarceration. That's proud right there. That's happening more than once. So can it scale? Yes. And the secret, after all of that, I've realized it's just time. It's time that people in the community gave to us. Time that somebody inspired within us, ourselves, whether we were prisoners or a vet or just somebody going through a difficult time, but inspired within us to do the work ourselves and make it happen for ourselves. So my big idea is time. When the folks at San Quentin heard about Eddie, they knew more than ever that if they just worked hard, and they had your time, anything is achievable. Time. It's an old concept worth revisiting. It's my gift to Eddie and my gift to you. It's how changes and second chances happen. Thank you.